DC made a great Flash movie just in time for DC to reset itself.
These are some of her last few moments of life.
Hey guys, I'm Sean O'Connell, the managing editor at CinemaBlend, with a review of the film The Flash, which is reaching theaters on June 16th. If you pay attention to the channel, you will know that we gave our early reaction to The Flash because we were able to see it at CinemaCon, the event that was held in Las Vegas. And since we're closer to the film's release, we wanted to sit down and do a full-on review so that you guys know what you're getting into before you head into the latest DC movie. Am I doing spoilers?
No.
Okay. You can watch this and still get a sense of how I felt about the movie without ruining any of the details that are to come. So feel free to keep going all the way through to the end of the video and watch as I summarize a couple of huge things that I had going on as I watched The Flash, because I was able to see it twice and I have a lot of opinions about it. While you're here, do me a favor, hit subscribe. Turn on your notification, leave some comments down below as well too. I want to hear what you guys think about the movie eventually, what your hype level for the movie is at this point, or whether you're just ready for James Gunn to take over DC and deliver Superman Legacy right away. But without further ado, let's get into Ezra Miller's starring role in the new DC film, The Flash. I want to start with the fact that The Flash actually exists as a love letter to several eras of DC. And you guys know that because it's essentially going back to the Michael Keaton Batman era, and it's using the multiverse for Barry Allen to travel through different universes and to experience different levels of DC. But it's really interesting to see how the film plays out because, as you saw in the trailers, there are the Batfleck elements of the film, and then there's Barry running through time in a Flashpoint sort of story where he's traveling back through time to try and save his mom, which is a story element that DC fans will be familiar with. And in the course of doing that, you know, he changes the pathways of the different multiverses. And there's a really great explanation in the middle of this movie of how Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne explains how time travel works. I'll leave that for you guys to discover. But as they tell this story and as they weave in all these different threads about different ways that the story could have gone or pathways through the past that would have been important to Barry had the DC universe sort of shook out that way, Andy Muschietti, the director, finds a way to sort of pay homage to everything that DC has done up to this point. Again, I won't mention specifics, but there are great nods sprinkled all the way throughout this movie that touch on the Snyderverse, that touch on the movies that came before that, whether it's the Tim Burton Batman movies, the Nolan films, all the way back to the Christopher Reeve Superman films. There are just homages and nods threaded all throughout this story that make it sort of the perfect bookend to this, you know, chapter of DC movies, and would be a great way to end before they handed the baton off to James Gunn. Now, the weird thing is we do have Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 to look forward to, so we'll discuss in future videos how we think that DC is going to sort of handle those two movies as they move forward. But as it stands right now, The Flash is a great love letter to DC up until this point. I understand that going into The Flash, you might be hesitant to go see this film because of Ezra Miller and the different controversies that surround the actor. And I don't want to belittle that in any way, shape, or form. That is absolutely your decision if you choose not to go see this film because of Ezra. I would like to acknowledge the fact that I think Ezra is going through the help that they need and said that they're going to get the treatment that they're seeking. That doesn't take away from their actions, and it certainly doesn't excuse them. But I just wanted to give this some context as I'm about to go into their performance in The Flash and focus on the on-screen contributions that they give to The Flash and Barry Allen, because I truly think they're a big part of the reason why the movie works as well as it does. Because of the time travel aspect of The Flash, Ezra has to play two different versions of Barry, the one that we know from the Prime timeline and the one that he bumps into when he changes history. It's a Back to the Future Part 2 sort of element where at one point you had two Marty McFlys sort of running around trying to avoid each other, but The Flash embraces the concept by having the two Barrys have to work together in order to try to find a Kryptonian in the universe that they are in, because General Zod shows up and is about to take over the world. What's remarkable about the two performances is that Ezra Miller is really playing two very different versions of Barry, one a little bit more confident and one that leans heavily into the sort of hyper annoying, they acknowledge how annoying that version of Barry is, and they actually have comedic chemistry when they play off of each other, and that's stunning when you think about how this movie had to be filmed. Later on, you get to some really emotional character beats, and I'm going to discuss in one of our other sections, and I thought Ezra did a tremendous job in those moments as well too. Another chunk of this audience is coming to this movie strictly to see Michael Keaton back as Batman. And I'll admit that was pretty exciting. Like, Keaton is my Batman. I grew up on that time frame, but I've seen the different Batmans come over the years. I kind of wish, that we got a little bit more with Keaton to do, because the scenes that he appears in, while exciting, do sort of contribute to the idea that the Flash is a little bit of fan service. He drops a couple of the key lines that everybody knows.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
But I didn't think that Bruce Wayne in this film got as much of like a character arc as, say, Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield did in No Way Home. They were sort of brought in because they were integral to that part of the story. And Andrew specifically in No Way Home got a redemption to something that happened to him in the previous films. They don't go that deep into Bruce Wayne. And again, I won't give you any sort of plot specifics, but he is kind of there to just move this one element of the plot along and also give a sort of wink and nod to the audience of, hey, remember when he was Batman kind of thing. And, I'm not saying the movie could have existed without him, but his presence, while entertaining, is not necessarily groundbreaking or earth shattering. And if people want to argue that it's fan service, I don't think I can push back that hard against that claim. The same sort of goes for Sasha Calle, who I really loved as Supergirl, but, doesn't get a ton of screen time. There's a lot of story to get to here in The Flash, whether it be Barry trying to initially prove his father's innocence because he doesn't believe that his father killed his mother, then figuring out how to time travel, then working his way through the different levers of the multiverse, and then finding Batman, that by the time you do get to Sasha Calle, you're heading into the third act of the film, which is fine because, they're, I think, potentially setting her up to maybe be Supergirl in subsequent movies. So if you're going into this movie hoping to get a ton of Supergirl, you won't. But the parts that I saw her in and the elements that she brought to the character were really exciting and a great interpretation of Kara that we're seeing on screen for, the first time in a really, really long time. And interesting to see how she fits into the elements that we know were pre-existing from Man of Steel. Not necessarily replacing Henry Cavill, like no one can really do that, but just telling you how it might have played out in a different version of the universe had the Kryptonian that made it to Earth been Kara instead of Kal-El. Okay, so far I've been talking about time travel and multiverses and all these different elements that come with a Flash movie and a Flash story. And so it requires a ton of visual effects. Like anytime that Barry runs as fast as he's supposed to, you have to have the visual elements that we saw play out both in Zack Snyder's Justice League and briefly in Batman vs. Superman. And the evolution of how they show Flash's powers has really grown a lot from, let's say, that convenience store scene in BVS. And as you might have seen in the trailers, the visual effects can be really great and then sometimes kind of dodgy. And particularly when they're trying to do Flash during the day, it just looks CGI. The CGI looks really, really, I don't want to say unfinished, that's not the right way, but smooth in a way that that they would probably want to add texture had they had more time. And this is something that's been going on with visual effects films, like really heavy VFX blockbusters over the past couple of years, because, and I don't want to keep going back to COVID and using that as an excuse for these, high powered and very expensive blockbusters to deliver insufficient visual effects. But I do know that the visual effects pipeline and the people who are working on these films just don't have the time to complete the amount of work that needs to get done. Marvel Studios will probably tell you the exact same thing. If you go back and look at films like Wakanda Forever and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, they would love to have more time to polish up those visual effects. And that dings the Flash a little bit, primarily, like I said, in those daytime scenes. Sometimes the costume looks amazing. Sometimes the action looks unbelievable. Especially ones that have Michael Keaton's Batman. We get to see that character move in ways that they never moved before, and it's really exciting. But there are definitely some elements where I looked at the visual effects and thought, ooh, you needed like another couple of weeks just to sort of finish that off. And that's okay. It didn't take me out of the movie, but it's definitely worth mentioning. The real reason why I loved The Flash is because the emotional elements of the character beats of the story. Barry trying to go back and change the past because he wants more time with his mom is simply too strong of an emotional hook to overlook. It really, really works well. And again, it's partially due to the strong performance by Ezra Miller as the both Barrys when they discuss how much they lost with their mom and how powerful that pull is, that if you had the ability to change time, would you go back and do it no matter the consequences? That's the driving narrative of this film. It's a driving narrative somewhat of the Flashpoint storyline with way more consequences. But Ezra Miller sells it. You know, I thought that they did a terrific job of dialing into the emotional components of this story so that when the visual effects were sort of overwhelming, or the fight sequences were, you know, as big as we needed them to be in summer blockbusters, there was still a human element to root for and a character that I wanted to see succeed ultimately. And those are the bits that kept me hooked all the way through till the end of the film. So somebody the other day on social media compared this film to Across the Spider-Verse, and that's just unfair on every level. Like, yet they're both multiverse stories, yet one is like a true work of art, and the other is just an entertaining summer blockbuster, one that works really, really well and has creative action set pieces and makes good use of the powers of the hero in the lead role. I like The Flash a lot. I can't quite say that I loved it, but it's definitely one of the more entertaining DC films that we've seen in a while. One of the most creative, and kind of imaginative. And I hesitate to use the word fun because when you use fun around DC fans, sometimes they get upset by it, but it's a fun movie. It's from the very beginning with some of the big action that happens between several key, elements with the Flash. You're going to be super plugged into this movie and the speed at which it moves, no pun intended. I am super curious to see how people react to the ways that they think that this will move the story going forward. And I want to hear more from James Gunn about the universe in general. For the moment right now, on its merits, I'm giving The Flash 4 stars out of 5. DC fans should love it. Whether you're a DC fan from back in the old day who came to watch Michael Keaton, or if you're a fan of the current DC universe and are excited about where DC is going, this is a wildly entertaining ride that you guys will have a good time with. Go see it on the biggest screen possible. We will continue to cover The Flash, especially a lot of those ending and mid-credit sequences because of the things that they suggest in videos here on our YouTube channel. You guys know that we love diving into the ins and outs of where the universe is going, so make sure you keep it here by hitting subscribe, giving us a like, and also, like I said, come on, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about The Flash. Let me know what you think about this review and tell me how excited you are for DC moving forward.